Hello, and thank you for viewing my dissertation defense presentation. My name is Theresa McFaddin Ordell, and Dr. Kellie M. Dixon has served as my dissertation advisor at Baylor University. I'm proud to share my research entitled Mean Management, a Qualitative Single Case Study exploring the Transtheoretical model, stages, and processes of change in a spiritual mentoring program for women of color. In this presentation, I will guide you through 10 items pertaining to my study. First, the problem statement, followed by the reviewed literature, the purpose statement, my 2 research questions, the theoretical framework used for the study, the methodology, an overview of the findings, the implications and recommendations, and finally, my distribution plan for the study. The last slide contains the dissertation references used for this presentation. The problem statement for this single intrinsic case study is women of color face long-standing marginalization and oppression spanning generations, necessitating comprehensive coping strategies to reshape their lifestyle and behavior. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that women of color comprised 20.3% of the United States population in 2021. Women of color will be the majority of all women in the United States by 2060. But women of color have had the highest rates of unemployment, and they are most likely to experience workplace harassment among all people. Kadeen Wilson revealed in their 2022 study that such practices stem from and echo past laws such as Jim Crow, the Mother's Pension, and the Social Security Act of 1935. My literature review includes 4 main sections, the first being coping strategies for women of color. These are methods used to manage crises, changes, or unwelcome circumstances. Studies also reveal that when women of color use spirituality as a coping strategy, they have positive, healthy benefits that occur, such as lowered blood pressure, an increased immune function, reduced depression, and more. Now, although spiritual practices can assist with confronting unpleasant realities, there can also be a misplacement of spirituality, and there can also be unhealthy outcomes based on some coping strategies. The first one being spiritual bypass. Now, this is defined by defensive psychological posture cultivated by a tendency to privilege or exaggerate spiritual beliefs. So there is an avoidance and a bypassing of difficult emotions or experiences. This is using spiritual ideas to avoid mental problems and to cover up unsettled emotional trauma and mental pain. The second one being strong Black woman schema. Now, this is characterized by perceived obligations to suppress fear and weakness, to showcase strength, reduce vulnerability, and to help others, and to succeed despite limited resources. Now, although strength is exhibited, women also suffer from internalizing the trauma, and this translates to self-abuse and feelings of shame and worthlessness when they fail to meet self-imposed expectations. A final negative coping strategy is self-silencing among women of color. Now, this behavior is connected to and can be connected to the strong Black woman concept, and it is constantly biting the tongue. This is due to a fear of rejection or acceptance of one's authentic self. The second part of my literature review is the evolution of mentoring. Mentoring is a relational process involving 2 people. The mentor offers positive socialization and encouragement to the mentee seeking insight or support for personal, professional, academic, spiritual development. The mentor aims to improve behavior and reports the following constructive outcomes: positive self-image, emotional adjustments, and psychological well-being. The term mentor originated from a man named Mentor who helped his friend the king of Ithaca in Homer's Odyssey. He offered to give guidance to the king's son, the prince, in his father's extended absence during the war. Now, the second part of my literature review includes forms of mentoring, and two fundamental categorizations are typical. That is formal and informal mentoring. Formal mentoring resides in intentional programs and the pairing of particular mentor to develop a certain mentee. Informal mentoring is spontaneous and unstructured interaction, and it is based on a mutual attraction of relationship without a structured goal. There's also intergenerational, peer mentoring, diversified mentoring, and it is important to mention that although white males have historically dominated mentoring, it is inevitable that as more indigenous people or people of color enter the workforce, diversified mentoring will grow. The last portion of my literature review is biblical integration in spiritual mentoring. Keith Anderson, a prominent voice in the study of spiritual mentoring, defines it in his 2016 book as guiding mentees into a special relationship with God as the architect of their purpose. There's also another approach which is called feminist mentoring. This is when you create a mentoring community that focuses on integrating religious beliefs and gender and issues concerning career, family, and faith. Additionally, research also explains that the impact of the integration of faith and learning on Black students is significant because research shows that Black students are more faith dependent than any other racial group. Over 50 religiously affiliated HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities, have incorporated the integration of faith and learning into their mission. They tend to nurture Black students and they offer quality education. Four emerging themes surfaced from a 2020 study conducted by Ramirez et al. On the integration of faith and learning at an HBCU, and that was connectivity, modeling, intentionality, and spontaneity. Tangenberg in 2013 stated that marginalized cultures and first-generation students can also benefit from faith and gender integration, integrated mentoring while they are in college. The purpose of this qualitative single intrinsic case study was to explore the stages and processes of change for women of color through the Me Management Spiritual Mentoring Program. The two research questions that guided the study are, number one, how do the personal experiences of mentees in the Me Management Spiritual Mentoring Program connect to the Transtheoretical model's stages of change? The second research question is, how do the personal experiences of mentees in the Me Management Spiritual Mentoring Program connect to the Transtheoretical model's processes of change? The theoretical framework that informs this study and noted in the research questions is the Transtheoretical model of behavior change, which I will refer to as TTM. Psychologists James Prochaska and Carlo Di Clemente introduced this theory in the early 80s, and it reveals coping strategies individuals can use to overcome barriers and to change. For this study, I specifically focused on two TTM constructs. The first are the stages of change, and the second, the processes of change. These two constructs of change are the processes that characterize doing the necessary things and the stages representing the timing for such course. So in all essence, the stages are the when, the processes are the how. These parts of the TTM were also the predetermined codes for the study. The 6 stages of the TTM are as follows. Pre-contemplation is the first stage, and people do not intend to change their behavior in the following 6 months. Contemplation is the next stage. The person is aware of the unhealthy behavior and intends to change it within the next 6 months. The third stage is preparation. The person plans to take action within the next month and can be recruited for a helpful program. The action stage is fourth, and the person has had less than 6 months and exhibits a pattern of behavior change. The fifth stage is maintenance, and change can be sustained and relapse avoided at this point. And the final stage is termination, where the healthy behavior becomes an automatic reaction. 3 processes of change are used for this study, and they are the most significant for addressing problems and distress. Since problems and distress are prevalent among women of color and relevant to this research, only these 3 processes of change are used. Activities individuals engage in when they attempt to change are, number 1, healthy relationships. The person receives support for changing their behavior, and they trust those who care, whether it's a friend or a support group. Number two, consciousness raising. This is one of the most used processes within therapy systems, and it includes becoming aware of the behavior problem and being confronted with feedback from others. Finally, self-liberation is the belief and commitment to changing the behavior. I utilized a qualitative single intrinsic case study research design to focus on the Me Management Spiritual Mentoring Program as a case for the study to reveal the value of spiritual mentoring for women of color. I selected this specific phenomenon due to its uniqueness as it is a spiritual mentoring program that uses biblical scripture to present healthy coping strategies to break emotional and relational barriers constraining women of color. Me Management has a formal group mentoring structure that runs for 12 months and culminates with the graduation for the mentees. In addition, it incorporates an informal structure throughout the year of the program. The selection criteria for the study were 5 women of color who were participants in Me Management and who also graduated from Me Management. The data collection protocol included semi-structured interviews, and these questions aligned with the TTM, and a focus group with the 5 participants, and those questions aligned with the structure of Me Management. I analyzed the data using a deductive thematic analysis. This type of analysis confirms the predetermined themes with the data as noted by Cresswell and Poth, and the deductive process involves gathering evidence for alignment. Now, the code book contained the predetermined codes based on the theoretical framework, and the predetermined themes were based on key principles from Me Management. Me Management was the program I decided to study to determine if it had the capacity to address the problem of practice and prove to be beneficial for women of color. The data was classified into 5 predetermined themes. The first theme is coping strategies for disorienting dilemmas. Disorienting dilemmas are defined as life events or incidents that a person experiences as a crisis that cannot be resolved by applying previous problem-solving strategies. Now, all the participants did explain various disorienting dilemmas that drew them to the program, such as breaking up with a boyfriend and being thrown out of the apartment and needing to find solutions for their life, not being a Christian but searching for answers, as one participant juggled a fast-paced job and shared the duties of raising her toddler with her boyfriend, and another participant was processing the long-term illness of her father and his passing while she was in college. So for the participants, the desperation of clarity raised awareness that help was needed from a source outside of themselves. The second theme is journaling as a transformational tool. Now, journaling as a transformational tool is also confirmed through the Transtheoretical model. Me Management incorporates journaling from the beginning of the program in every session and encourages recording thoughts, feelings, and actions in order for the mentees to track their journey of change. It was through Me Management, one participant stated that they were encouraged to journal and that they journaled their prayers in their devotional time, and they still practice that today. The third theme is the word works. This is derived from a foundational quote of the program, which is centered and focused on the Bible and Scripture. The word is another word that is interchangeable for referencing biblical Scripture. The highlight of Me Management is their focus on this, and it is the fuel for spiritual mentoring. The findings revealed that the spiritual lessons may have connected to a psychological theory, but they were also rooted in Scripture. The fourth theme was Sisters Inspiring Sisters. This is basically women supporting women and being willing to challenge each other in conversation and encourage inspiration. Now, the facilitators, the Me Management mentor facilitators did help with this, and one of the participants noted that the stuff that families can't attack or present to them that they need to change, they could be called out on it in Me Management, but it was done in an intimate environment, and they were told things that weren't acceptable, yet and still they embraced this process. The final theme was structuring a relevant mentoring program. The participants discussed in the focus group findings surrounding whether or not the program should continue to be focused primarily on women of color. The majority of participants said that the program was created by a person of color, so it's made for women of color, but that it could benefit anyone. There was, however, one participant that said because of external factors for women of color, such as systematic racism and an inaccessibility to therapy, that there are barriers for women of color that mean management addresses, and it could be the stopgap for that. The implications for this study impact three groups. Number one, mentor facilitators. Number two, mentee participants. And finally, program hosts. Mentees becoming mentors validates the program's effectiveness, and it offers a pool of potential me management mentor facilitators. For the mentees, the implications are that they benefit from the spiritual mentoring program and they're open to the offered coping strategies. And finally, for the program hosts, further implications for expanding the type of me management hosting sites are now available. As a result of those implications, the following recommendations are made for the same three groups. So for the mentor facilitators, the best form of training begins with mentors graduating from management to fully understand the impact of this specific spiritual mentoring program. For the mentee participants, this commitment would require sacrifices to ensure that they focus and fully invest in the required work for the program. And finally, the recommendation for the program host would be, for example, universities. They could consider offering students incentives for committing to spiritual mentoring in order to combat negative coping strategies. My goal is for research to expand on the effectiveness of spiritual mentoring, and I want to have a voice in that. I want the data from this study to also help churches and ministries effectively conduct the Bible's Great Commission in a way that would resonate with the younger generation. Several researchers have recommended investigating ways that religion and spirituality can support women of color and influence psychotherapy in the context of their lived experiences. The distribution plan would include 3 steps. Number one, academic presentations. This would be presenting me management spiritual mentoring to higher education departments at historically Black colleges and universities, and also the Council for Christian College and Universities. Second would be professional presentations. This would be to women conferences to speak, and even Christian and secular conferences as a keynote speaker or workshop speaker on the effectiveness of spiritual mentoring. I would also like to present spiritual mentoring findings and recommendations at academic conferences, and I would like to partner with other researchers to have this information included in other studies. Finally, industry publications would be Christian publishers looking to publish curriculum such as me management, denominations seeking to find and to offer spiritual mentoring programs for their women in their congregations, worship ministries, church fellowship organizations, and finally, Christian social media platforms such as YouVersion. I believe that this spiritual mentoring for women of color needs to be part of their devotional series and their reading plans. Please note these are the references, or some of the references used in the study, in very tiny font, but it is all here for your review. So thank you so very much for engaging with me in my presentation on spiritual mentoring for women of color, and I would love to engage with you in the future. Thank you.